Everything you need to know about products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on CL 650.
You may be right, I may be crazy, oh, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for. Turn out the lights, don't try to save me.
Welcome back to QuayPaciffic Talk About Strata, and thanks Dwayne for that song, because we're talking about people and a variety of people living in lifestyles and strata buildings and the enforcement of bylaws and all of the things that we deal with bylaw compliance, and we deal with noise and pets and parking and all kinds of variables of age and rentals in buildings. So we have Adrienne Murray from QuayPaciffic, Adrienne Murray from Hammerberg Lawyers in the studio with us, and she is we've been talking about rental bylaws, some of the case law that's changed this year, but we also have a lot of issue in the media right now around noise bylaws and things, and I think one of the things that everyone's kind of losing sight on are some of the issues that are coming up with respects to the complications, I think, that strata councils have. You know, strata councils are volunteers. They're given this set of bylaws that they've inherited over ages from the Strata Corporation that's adopted and amended. We have a bylaw that says nobody can create a nuisance that interferes with the use and enjoyment of other property. But you know, I'm a volunteer Strata Council, and I'm expected to enforce these bylaws against my fellow neighbors. It's pretty complicated.
Oh, absolutely. It's complicated. It's not easy, but it's necessary. I mean, this is what, as we started tonight's show, we talked about the importance of bylaws. Well, the importance of creating the requirements for the community in which we live is only going to have any value if, in fact, they're going to be enforced at the end of the day. So we start with the drafting of the bylaws and creating how we'd like to see our community function. But then in order to make that real, they have to be enforced. So it's difficult, but not impossible. And the courts have given us direction along the way. I think, you know, to me, one of the most difficult issues is the fact that some people perhaps aren't meant for strata living. And it's very, very difficult in an apartment building to create a building that is completely soundproof.
Right.
When all of the best techniques and construction materials are used, you're still going to hear, and you're still going to have noise transference. We need to understand that when we live in close confines, and we've had some case law that has sort of addressed it. This was a case, a quote that was included in a case in 2013 that addressed the fact of an eviction of an owner because of their unwillingness to comply with bylaws. And the quote says, "Participation in condominium projects necessarily involves a surrender of some degree of proprietary independence. An owner is at the mercy of the rules enacted through the internal decision-making process. This is logical." And so come back to the idea of the surrender. My home is my castle. Well, not really in a strata. I can't make as much noise as I want, or perhaps I could in my own home.
Right.
I can't turn the stereo up full blast or have my kids running around screaming all day long. That's just inappropriate in a strata. So it's maybe normal behavior for some people, but it has to be curtailed in a strata, and I think that's the difficulty. So we've got the volunteers doing the best they can with their bylaws. Correspondingly, we've got to have owners who understand that they're living in a strata. Now, doing the best they can with their bylaws may mean that they need better bylaws, and that's the other obvious, is that if the bylaws unclear, very difficult to enforce, then we may need a better bylaw that will help the Strata Council enforce it.
Well, and certainly one of the greater problems that we see with strata corporations in trouble are bylaws that are subjective. You know, I think there's enough case law now that gives us a pretty good indication that strata councils really don't have subjective authority. You have a bylaw that says no pets. No pets means no pets. There may be some accommodation requirements for human rights requirements, but the Strata Council doesn't have the authority to randomly decide whether Joan in Strata Lot 54 gets a dog, but they don't like Joe in Strata Lot 13 and he doesn't get a dog.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm still seeing stratas that want to have bylaws that's for exactly that.
Yeah.
Pets at
with
the permission of the Strata Council.
Yeah.
So on what would be the criteria?
Yeah.
I think the more difficult one though is the one that you raised just when we started this segment is the noise. There is a degree of discretion. What is unreasonable noise? What is undue noise? What constitutes a nuisance? So there's got to be some element of subjective decision making by the Strata Council. Now, but they have to do it. They've got to determine. And we've had a couple of cases about noise. We had a case of Mrs. Grobazik that was intentionally making noise with the very intent of aggravating the owner below her. There had been some other dispute, and so this was the fallout. And the court looked at that noise and said that this was not noise in the ordinary course of living. So I've had owners complain about they can hear a baby cry, or they can hear the shower running. Well, those are noise in the ordinary. That's noise in the ordinary course of living that I really don't think we can do anything about. I'm sure that if somebody's got a solution to the baby crying, that we'd have addressed it by now. So those are things we just have to live with, and we live with them. If you're going to live in a confined space in an apartment style building, you're likely going to hear some of that. Doors slamming, screaming, stereo noise, that type of thing, that's excessive.
Pets barking all day.
Pets barking, absolutely. That's excessive. And that's where I think council needs to start to say, well, what kind of a noise is this? How frequent is it? How long, what's the duration of it? Is it something that's we would normally expect to hear in an apartment, or is it unreasonable? Is it out of the ordinary?
So the Strata needs to collect information. They need to investigate. They need to verify. The one benefit Strata Council would have that a judge would not have, for example, is the Strata Council, if we're dealing with a noise issue, can actually go into a suite with the permission of the owners and can hear what kind of noise that person is being exposed to, and have firsthand knowledge of the experience that the other parties are going through.
Exactly. I mean, we see the same sort of thing when the person upstairs has put in a hard surface floor.
Right.
And now everything that gets dropped is magnified in
Tenfold.
the unit below.
Yeah.
So having the council hear it is often very, very useful. Having them contemplate in advance what's going to happen. For example, if I want to put in a hard surface floor, it has to have certain degrees of sound underlay.
Right.
It has to have area carpets on high traffic areas. So there's things that we can do in advance, and then ultimately when there is a complaint, the council has to deal with it. One of the concerns I have, and I hear quite frequently, is that if an owner is complaining about the noise from another owner, the Strata Council says, well, that's between the two of you.
Right.
And I think that, in fact, is incorrect.
Okay. It's certainly a challenge for Strata Council, remembering your volunteers. Do a review of your bylaws. Look at your bylaws on a regular basis to make sure they're functioning. We talked earlier about Strata Corporation having all of their documents. When you look at your land title registry, you're going to see quite possibly a long list of bylaw filings for your Strata Corporation, especially if you're 10 or 20 years old. Your Strata may have filed bylaw amendments every year. All of those may or may not be in effect. Some of them may have been repealed. Some of them may not be repealed. You may have multiple bylaws saying multiple things may still be in effect, causing complications. So a regular review of your bylaws is a healthy exercise for your strata.
And you may need that review to be completed by a lawyer to assist you in figuring out what you've got and what you don't. Certainly when we're talking about any new bylaw amendments in the clients that I work with, we repeal the previously filed bylaws. So we need to be very clear that if we're amending the bylaws today, we're repealing what was filed before. That may not have been done, so worth a review.
Adrienne Murray from Hammerberg Lawyers, thank you very much for being on the show.
Tony.
And Happy New Year to everyone, and happy strata living.